What's up, man?
Nothing, man. Just getting the day started over here in New York. It's a bit on the early side right now, but
Yeah, I actually just finished a call with someone else from New York, so he was
oh
kind of
really?
at, yeah, he was actually at the same level. It's like, dude, I just woke up. Well, for
Yeah,
me, the day
yeah,
is getting ended, right? So
yeah,
it's always a
yeah.
fun
I
thing.
actually woke up really early today, so you're good. For me, it's like middle of the day. I woke up at 5 in the morning
Okay, is
today.
that something you do regularly, or?
I don't know what it is. I think it's because I'm preparing for like EDC Mexico next week. So
Hmm.
now my mind is going like 100 miles a minute, and I went to sleep early. I was very tired because that's how my mind works. You know, when I'm thinking of like production and I'm thinking of like a big show, my mind is just like all over.
Yeah.
So my body gets restless like a lot quicker. So I fell asleep early, but also woke up very early. And I also knew we were doing this early, so my brain was just like, "Yeah, you got to be up, man. Five
Yeah,
o'clock." I'm like, "That's a little too early, brain.
yeah,
Chill out."
exactly. It's like meditation or something. Is that something you do, or?
No, but I actually want to get into meditation. I just feel like it's a process that needs to be taken very seriously,
Hmm.
and it's a discipline. And actually, I'm a big fan of transcendental meditation by this famous American filmmaker called David Lynch.
Okay,
And
what's that?
he actually has a good book about it. It's called Catching the Big Fish,
Hmm.
and it's about transcendental meditation. Basically, is a focus on transporting yourself from your subconscious thoughts and desires, and just becoming one with your natural surroundings. So basically, what he says is like if you live in a busy city, it's okay. You can just take some time during the day and take in the sounds of the busy city
Yeah,
and learn to cope with it and learn to just kind of create this harmonic synergy
yeah.
uh, with your surroundings. He's basically saying you don't need to be in a quiet place. It's okay. It's just learning about transcending your mind with everything that's around you and accepting it. It's a bit complex. And so he has classes,
Hmm.
and they have some classes in New York, but they're expensive. So I'm like, ooh, like I love the concept, but I can't really commit to that right now. You know?
Yeah, I think it's more like with all forms of meditation or whatever. I haven't done it that much though, so I'm not a big expert on these things. But I think what I learned from my education and stuff is that eventually we all have the rest in ourselves. You know, you just have to look it up and you have to become one with it just once a day or maybe two times a day or three times a day. Whenever you wanna, whenever you feel the need to, well, shut off from the rest of the world and dive deeper inside of
Yeah.
yourself. I think
It's
it's
a
just
necessary thing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, and especially if you live in well cities like New York, for example, where you live. I can imagine, like, I live in a little small city called Tilburg where there's, what's it, like 200,000 citizens or whatever, something like
I,
that.
I, I love Tilburg. I've been there before.
Yeah, it's pretty, in the Netherlands, it's still a pretty
Small.
big
Yeah.
city, but, for the world, it's like a village.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's really calm here. That's what I like. But I can imagine that when you live in places like New York, like, it's just energy all the time and sounds and noise and what's funny? Maybe you've experienced the same thing. I recently bought the new AirPods with the canceling option,
Okay.
and I went outside. And like I said, I live in a quiet neighborhood, and I went outside and I turned on my noise cancellation, and then I heard it for the first time how much background noise there actually is because the noise cancellation filters out everything.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
so it's like well simply cars on the background or just like I don't even know what it is but just like
Yeah.
constant noise, city noise,
Right. Right.
which you're not even aware of but which your ears constantly have to work on,
And they
um,
get accustomed to it, so you're not
yeah,
even conscious that these sounds are around you all the time.
exactly, and it tires you out as well because your ears get tired of it as well.
Yeah. Ear fatigue. Yeah. It's a
Exactly.
real.
So yeah, that's a deep start, but let's just
Why not, man?
yeah, exactly. Let's just dive into it. But before we go any further, let's just do a quick introduction of who you are for everyone who's listening or watching this and thinks, "Who the hell is this guy?"
Yeah, who the hell am I? I ask myself, let's get deeper. I ask myself that question every day. Who
Really? Holy shit!
am I?
What's the answer so far?
No, but I mean, in all seriousness, I am My name is Stefan Alex Vasquez. As you guys know now, I'm born and raised in New York City. Currently reside in New York City, and I'm 35 years of age. May not look it, but I am. I'm an 80s baby, and I started off as a filmmaker,
Really?
and then through film, I made a very popular documentary 10 years ago, actually, this year. It was called The Electro Wars, and through that film,
The Electro Wars?
yes, The Electro Wars.
Okay.
Actually, the first screening of it was in Siri.
Siri. I have the same thing always. Oh, there she goes. I mention her and she pops up.
So yeah, the Electro Wars documentary was actually premiered in Amsterdam. It was the first place it was premiered internationally at.
What was it about? Like internet wars or?
It was actually about electronic music in 2000 and circa 2009, going into 2010. At the time, it was all about like what they called Bloghouse. So it was like Mastercraft, you know, Bloody Beetroots when Steve Aoki was coming up.
Yeah.
And I managed to kind of make a narrative out of that and show how mainstream music was adapting that. So I interviewed like Pitbull, I interviewed Little John, I interviewed LMFAO, who were really big at the time.
Yeah.
Black Eyed Peas I interviewed. So it was kind of like merging the underground sensibilities into the mainstream, and that's what the film was about. But it was also kind of telling the story that electronic music has been around for many years prior to that. So I talk about how, you know, Parliament Funkadelic and Africa Bambaataa, they were kind of like the originators of electro funk and electro music, and then that became hip hop.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I go into all of that stuff. It's a very interesting film. And
is it something? Is it still online? Like, can we still see it somewhere? Or?
It's not. Unfortunately, it was taken down, but it premiered on Pitchfork and MTV.com in 2010. But what I'm gonna try and do this year is do like a reissue and put it up again, probably maybe on Noisy or Vice. I'm still talking to some of them, so I'll figure it out.
So that's where you started off, like making documentaries.
Yeah, I started like that, and then from there, I met Skrillex when he was just starting the Skrillex project, and he actually wanted to be in the film. That's how we communicated. And he said he was a big fan of the film, and I said, "Oh, cool, yeah, sure, let's meet up, let's set something up." But at the time, the movie had already been premiered in Los Angeles, like I said, Amsterdam. It was in the Stockholm Film Festival as well, and it was a little too late. But I was working on the second one, so I told him, "Yeah, let's do something for the second one." Long story short, we became really good friends. He told me about the EP he was working on, the first one, Scary Monsters, I think. Scary Monsters, and Nice Sprites. And then he said, "Hey, listen, man, I'm a big fan of your filmmaking work, and you're super talented, and I'd like for you to join my team and just document my life from here on out, because I really think I'm on the verge of something big." So I heard his music, and I kid you not, I was like blown away, man. I was like, whoa.
I can imagine.
This guy is on another level. Because back then it was like, imagine everything that was popular at the time was like Afrojack, Cindy Sampson. It was Dutch House, was big.
Dutch House, Bleep House.
Huge, you know. And I love that stuff. But then when I heard his stuff, I was like, whoa, like this is like next level stuff, you know. And I said, yeah, man, I'm down. Let's work together. At the time, I was a teacher in New York City, and you know, I had to put in my 2 weeks, and then I said, hey, listen, I'm not coming back. And then I went on tour, toured the world with him for 2 years.
Wow,
and I never went back. And then from there, I transitioned into music. You know, being on the road.
That must have been a great experience, man, to kick off your career with a tour like that.
Absolutely, man. It was a huge blessing. It was a huge blessing that he was essentially my mentor. You know, I learned a lot. Till this day, I still I adopt many of his ideologies into the things I do.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was definitely a blessing for me as an artist.
What was something that you experienced on the tour that you still take with you each day?
Oh wow, man, there's so many. I'm actually in the process of writing a memoir because, you know, as you get older, you forget a lot of
Yep.
shit. I forgot what I ate yesterday, but I mean, I want to have these collective experiences and documented, and I'm in the process of writing a memoir. But that's actually a very interesting question. I think for me, one of the experiences that I still take with me is how important it is to be around other artists
Hmm.
that are like-minded individuals, because there was one time where I got on the bus and I saw Dylan Francis producing music, Alvin Risk, Steve Duda, who's the creator of Serum. He was there teaching Dylan how to like create synthwave tables. He was in the process of creating Serum at the time. Um, and I saw this synergy, you know. Zed was in the back of the bus as well. He was making Clarity. I don't know what the hell he was doing. Porter Robinson was making music. It was all of these guys. It was like the all stars, you know,
Yeah,
the all star
exactly.
team of producers. And I'm just like, wow, like dumbfounded. Like, wow, this is incredible. These guys are here and essentially kind of creating like a writing camp on this tour bus,
Yeah.
and everybody was just exchanging information, exchanging ideas, and I got to witness that. So I realized that that is extremely crucial and important when it comes to creating not just music, but just art in general. But that was a very special time because a lot of great music was birthed
Yeah.
on that bus. You know, Clarity came out from that. Skrillex made Bangarang. Dylan Francis made his biggest EP, like on Matt Decent. Like, I got to witness the creativity process of that, and I think it's very important. Unfortunately, not all artists have that freedom or opportunity, you know, to sit
Hmm.
down with, you know, the people that they collaborate with or want to collaborate with. But
Yeah, but you can still do it on another level, as in you can still find like-minded artists, especially on places like, for example, music schools these days, um,
sure,
which is one of those things I think has changed over the last, well, let's take 10 years. 10 years ago, there were no EDM schools or music producer schools.
yeah,
And right
yeah,
now, there's loads of them. And I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I think one of the upsides of being in such an environment is that you're, well, actually living with like-minded people each day, which motivates you to make more music, which inspires you to make more music or better music.
yeah.
It could lead to possible collaborations which you would have never done in any other way. So I think like surrounding yourself with like-minded people always is a great idea.
Always, definitely,
Like the people you hang with are the people who influence you in the end.
absolutely. But yeah, like I said earlier, imagine being in a place where everyone is like a
Yeah,
creative. That's just like wow. You can't even explain that energy. It's
that's special.
beyond
Yeah,
mention, man. Yes, exactly. It's
yeah.
special. It's a
Okay.
moment in time, you know. It's crazy.
So you documented that series as in you videotaped everything.
I recorded the whole tour. I
Mm-hmm.
think at the time it was the first ever Oslo tour, and then he did the Mothership tour, which was the next one, and he did the Mothership tour in America, and then he did it in Europe. So I was just a part of all of that. And then, you know, whenever he would do one-offs and things like that, I would always travel with him.
Mm-hmm. That's
Which is
cool,
pretty,
man. And
yeah.
what did that lead to? Like, what was the next thing that happened?
Well, from that time period, that was also around the time when the genre moombahton was born,
Mm-hmm.
because that happened around 2011, 2012, and at the time, I was very interested in delving into music because I was around, like I said, all these amazing producers. So that started to rub off on me. And even though I'm not classically trained per se, I grew up with music my entire life. You know, I come from a family that its music is such an important component in our everyday life that it was very natural to me to go into music. And I also live in Queens, New York. And for anyone that's ever been here, you'll know that there's so many, it's a melting pot. They say it's one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the world. You can find all walks of life in Queens, New York. So the music is very vibrant here. You have Haitians, you have Europeans, you have Latinos, you have blacks, you have Asians, you have everything here. So all types of music are just kind of like a hodgepodge of sounds, and everything kind of just melds together here. So I grew up with all of those influences. So I said, man, I really want to take my influences and merge them with electronic music. So I took the main influence for me, which was Latin music, and I was like, let's just make a project. So I hit up a producer here in New York, and he was like, yeah, man, let's do it, because I didn't know how to make music. So we created a project called Sasombuya, and that was our first musical endeavor. Well, I say us because I mean myself and my partner Mysterio, who's the guy who wears the mask, who's currently in my project now, Fight Club.
Okay.
He was on tour with Skrillex at the time.
Okay.
It's Mysterio, Zed, Porter Robinson, Skrillex on tour.
That name kind of rings a bell. I just don't know why, but Mysterio kind of rings a bell.
Well, Mysterio is the name, the spelling is different, but there's a wrestler called Rey Mysterio.
I don't watch any wrestling, so that shouldn't be it.
There's another thing. South Park did a cartoon character called Mysterio once.
Oh, I think that's the one. Yeah, I think that's the one. The South Park episode. Yeah.
So you remember the mask? He's got the.
I kind of have an image with that. Yeah.
That's probably what it is. Yeah. So he was on tour with Skrillex, and that's how I met him.
Okay.
And I asked him, I said, hey, listen, I'm starting this project with Latin-infused sounds, electronic music. And he was like, oh, yeah. That's Moombahton. I was like, Moombahton? What's that? I didn't know what Moombahton was. He taught me about Moombahton. And he was already playing Moombahton on the tour. And I said, oh, I guess it could be Moombahton. So then I went back to the producer and I said, hey, let's do Moombahton. Because my idea was let's do like electro house with Latin stuff, because that was popular at the time. Electro house was huge. But then I learned about Moombahton, and that made more sense. So the whole project was Moombahton.
Yeah, especially if you're talking about Latin influences, then Moombahton is the perfect way to go.
Exactly. So that's how that came about. The Moombahton project.
Okay. And right now you're in Fight Club, right?
Right. So right now, what happened was Sasombuya was around from 2011 up until 2013, I believe. And then the group disbanded. Just the creative and financial differences. So I said it was better to just leave the project and start something new. So we created Fight Club. And at first, Fight Club started off as an electro house project because I was very disheartened with the whole, Moombahton thing, and I was kind of like sour about what happened. It was a bad breakup, So I was like, you know what? Let me just go the other way. It's kind of like when you break up with someone, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go look for something that's completely different now.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. It was electro house, Fight Club in the beginning, and
was that around the time that we met? No, right?
No, that was in 2014, I believe. 2014.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So the first single we launched was with Afrojack's label, Wall Recordings. It was called Shout That, and that was a huge way to launch the project because Afrojack, he knew me through Electro Wars, the documentary. So I said, hey, I'm starting a project. I'm just gonna send you the song. Let me know if you want to sign it. And then I never heard back from him. 2 months later, he sends me a video. He's like, let me know what you think about this. And it's a video of him playing with David Guetta and Nicky Romero back to back at Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
And they're playing the song. And I was like, what? This is great. And then he put smiley face. I guess this means I want to sign it. Are you still interested? So, you know, shout outs to him, man, because he really kicked us off, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then years later, we released an EP with Wall as well, the Rude Boy EP. And he did a bootleg or a mashup of one of the tracks. So he was actually the day one supporter of Fight Club, Afrojack.
Yeah, and I can imagine that during 2014, that kind of was like the highest point for him as well. Like he was
Mm-hmm.
like the most attention he has ever had in his career. I can imagine in 2014, maybe a bit earlier. But having a guy like that supporting your act, supporting your your artist name, um, really helps to promote yourself and to put your name on the map, right?
Absolutely.
So
Afrojack, he single-handedly like launched our career as Fight Club because it's not easy to come back from another project as big as Sasombuya was. It's very difficult because you go from something like that to something completely different. You change the name, you rebrand. It's a big risk. It could be a potential failure if it's not done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But by having someone like him co-sign, it was a lot easier.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. It was a lot easier at that point.
And a big advantage that you had, that you took from, maybe you took it from your experience with the other project, is that you had your network.
Right.
You knew the people. And I think that that's a major key in an artist's career. You need to get your foot between that door, because otherwise they simply won't open it. And like knowing those people already and having the option to send your music to the person and Afrojack actually listens to it, instead of just ending up on the big pile of demos, you know, that's the big advantage you want to have as an artist. And maybe that's the thing you took from your previous project.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought you meant more the question. I thought you were referring more to what experience or mindset did you take. But if you're saying like, actually, what did I take? Yeah, definitely the network for sure. The network. I met, dude, at one point, I was hanging out with Tiesto in Ibiza, you know, with Skrillex, just drinking and eating. I had that kind of connection with these artists, and you know, that's something you don't have, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the most valuable thing, as in you're with those people in a private environment, as in you're not there as a fan, you're there as a guy drinking beer with them.
Yeah,
which brings the conversation to another level. It's not just talking about music; it's talking about life in general, and maybe interests that you share. You know, like maybe you watch football, or you both watch wrestling, or whatever you do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but having those shared interests and having those shared moments creates a bond.
Yeah. And then you take what you do with that bond is entirely up to you. But if you're smart, you'll make that a transition. Like, hey, remember me? I'm that guy, like you said. I'm that guy that loves wrestling. Remember the dude? We were talking about that wrestler. And then that opens the conversation into a friendly zone in the beginning. And then you have to know how to transition from that into more aggressive business conversations. And most people don't know how to do that in the industry.
Exactly. Like they go in for the kill immediately. They're like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. Hey, I need this. Hey, how's it going? You know, you get the email. Hey, hope everything is well. I need this. Can you make it happen?
Yeah. It's like
dude, butter me up a little bit, you know? Come on, boil me up. You know?
Makes sense. I think in the music industry, like it's in the end, it's a big people business. As in, your connections are one of the most important things. And setting up a relationship is one thing, but maintaining it is second.
I love that. That's so true. That's
And
so true.
I always make the comparison. Is that the right word? Yeah. I always compare it with how you create your own friends. Like, why are your friends your friends? It's not because you just have a relationship with them. It's because you have previous experiences, you've shared the same interests, and at the same time, you also keep texting them like, hey, happy birthday. Hey, how was your dinner last night? Are you going to watch the game with me? You
Yeah,
maintain the relationship. And I think that that's what a lot of people forget to do when it comes down to business, when it comes down to the music business.
absolutely, absolutely. It's a lost art. It really is. And you would think with technology it would get easier, but it actually makes people drift apart, which is the ironic part. I think technology, if anything, instead of bringing us closer, it makes us more out of touch with each other on an intimate level, which is kind of interesting
I think that
because,
could have to do with the fact that most of the communication goes through body language.
right,
And when you just send a text, like you have to, it's almost impossible to deliver all the information you can send out with your body language into a 160 piece of text, or what is it, like 160 characters
yeah,
of text.
yeah,
So I think that that's, yeah, like you mentioned, it was built to make things easier, and I still think it helps. Like I'm really happy because technology helps us to do these things as well. Like I'm sitting here at home behind my laptop, you're sitting there at home in New York, and
yeah,
somehow we still can do these things. So that makes things way easier. But like you mentioned, people kind of forgot how to communicate,
yeah, absolutely,
and I think that
absolutely.
that's yeah, a lost art. It's true.
I mean, I think everything in moderation, right? Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, what we're doing, I think this is fine, right? This is something that's necessary, right? Where we can't physically be next to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way of communication, and this is a way of getting our points across for the podcast. But I'll give you an example where I think technology is hurting certain situations, right? For example, like my wife is looking for employment, right, in this country, and not like the what I recall back in the day, if you were to submit an application as a job applicant and someone was interested in you, they would call you in for an interview. And that was kind of like the process. And then you would go in, go through human resources, get interviewed. If they liked you, you'd get hired. If they didn't, c'est la vie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now she's telling me, yeah, I'm going through this 3 or 4 part interview process. I got to do a Skype call, and then I got to fill out this form talking about my skills, my skill assessment, and then I got to get, no, I'm sorry. First, it's the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's the assessment sheet. Then it's a Skype call. And then if they like all of those things, then they'll call you in for an interview, an in-person interview.
Mm-hmm.
My whole thing is like, okay, I understand the assessment test. That's okay. But come on, guys, really, like if you're that interested in someone's resume, just call them in,
Yeah.
call them for the
Meet them
in-person.
in person. Yeah.
Yes, call them in. It's like you said, body language.
Yeah.
Someone can't give you that over a Skype call. I mean, they could, but it's not the same.
It,
It's not the
it
same.
helps, because I can see you, so I have a deeper understanding of communication with you right now. But still, there's a difference between standing across each other and having a screen between it.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
and I think that that's the same thing with music. Like if you meet someone, it's perfect to have Skype as an extra. Like if you're in time hurry or whatever, you can meet like this. But in the end, meeting someone in person and just having a coffee or having a beer or sharing some food together, that builds a bigger bond than Skype will ever do.
Even a handshake.
Even a
The
handshake, yeah,
Japanese are big on handshakes. It's a form of the ultimate respect for business, right?
yeah,
I think certain traditions should never die. I think it's not me being a traditionalist or I'm not romanticizing these things. I'm just saying there's a reason that they've been around in culture for thousands of years because they're very important.
yeah.
And I think technology kind of diminishes the value and impact of those things,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I
You
think we're
know?
in an interesting time because we kind of are in the middle of it. I believe. I always call it like the mini disc phase. I'm not sure if you're still
Yeah,
familiar with the.
I still have my mini disc right
Yeah,
here.
me too. I actually my dad came to bring it to me like a couple of weeks ago. Like, hey, I found this on the attic. Like, do you still need this? It's like, dude, no. Uh, but that was also like a medium that was in between the iPod and CDs, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're kind of in that moment right now. Like, we are living with technology all day long, but we also still remember back in the days when we still did handshakes and meet in person, and we still see the value of that. And we
Right.
need to figure out the right balance between those two things. That will take some time because we're still getting used to all the technology because technology keeps evolving so quickly
Yeah.
that it's almost impossible to keep up. So I kind of feel that within the next couple of years, we will start to balance those things out properly.
Yeah. Maybe the next generation too. What is it? They're Generation Z now? No,
I don't know, man.
I don't even know. But I think the kids that are coming up now that are born with technology will probably have a better handle on it. I hope. I know maybe they'll. I don't know. It's hard to say.
It's hard to say, but it's an interesting time, in my opinion. I really believe that it's that technology isn't a bad thing. It's there to help us and to improve our lives, to make things better. But there's a thin line between making things better and completely being relying on it.
Exactly.
But that's the way how I see it. Maybe that's because we are born in a different time and a different age. But I try to think modern wise. You know, I'm not an old
Yeah.
guy who keeps holding on to the old stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
If I didn't have technology, I wouldn't be where I am today in my life. Technology is and was a huge component of everything I've done. So
yeah, it's electronic music. You know, like without
yeah.
the whole yeah. So what's the thing right now? Like if you have a look at all the technical thing that you use, what's the most important? What's the best thing you've bought in the last couple of months?
Something physical that I've purchased.
Yeah, it could be a piece of software that helps you with your music, or maybe it's a device or something that really helps you. What's the best investment you've done?
Recently, I mean, nothing hardware wise, but recently I bought a new software, a
Mm-hmm.
new compression software, and it helps me filter out certain sounds if I want to make like what's called a bootleg or an unofficial remix.
Mm-hmm.
I can take any song and then drag it into this program, and it eliminates all the other sounds, and it just takes the vocal and extracts it out.
Does
So
is it like phase and anti-phase or?
it's something where it's a software by Isotope, and what it does is just it essentially just kind of like takes all the harmonics and equalizes everything to the
Mm-hmm.
point where it's only the vocal, but you can still hear some remnants of
Yeah,
like
I
percussive.
think that's with phase and anti-phase. Like they kind of cancel them out because they put them in against each other.
Right,
If I,
probably.
I guess so. What's the name of the plugin?
Um, Shit, I gotta look it up. It's on Isotope.
Nice.
It's an Isotope plugin for sure, though.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I think Isotope has great stuff. I'm a big fan of that. What's it called? Vocalizer? Is that? Let me check.
Vocal,
Vocal synth? No, Isotope.
vocal synth. Yeah, I need to
Yeah,
purchase.
vocal synth.
A lot of people have been recommending vocal synth.
Oh man, that one's great. That was one missing piece for me. As in, when I was working with vocals, one of the things that I was always struggling with is making a vocal interesting, because
Hmm.
you just have this one layer, and there is a moment where you have used enough echoes and reverbs, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so using a vocal synth, it's just such an easy plugin to make the whole vocal sound interesting and just bring it to life, in my opinion.
What does it do exactly? Like it has presets where you can alter the vocal.
Yeah, of course it has presets, but it's kind of I think it's like a combination of effects. So you have, for example, a distortion and an EQ and a tuner in there and a chorus, and it kind of it's the combination of all those plugins which, well, yeah, creates like a whole new effect on the original vocal, and you
Right.
can mix it with with the original input. You can just use the 100% of the effect. It just has a lot of options in there, which I think add great value to the vocals. You should definitely check it out. Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of producers have been recommending that app. I mean the plugin.
the plugin.
Who created that one?
It's Isotope.
It's Isotope, right?
Yeah,
Isotope makes this plugin.
I
It's
think
great.
Zed created. What was the song? Fuck, what's his name?
Oh, the
Stay.
yeah, yeah, the
I
big
th-
one, the future
yeah, I
bass.
think he created the vocal with that synth, because you can hear the like the robotic under, yeah, the layer underneath the vocal, which sounds robotic or something. That comes from the vocal synth, I guess so.
Yeah, yeah.
Super
I gotta check
interesting.
this out. I really do.
Yeah, you should. It's perfect. So, what are the things that you're working on right now? Like, what's on your mind at this moment? Like you mentioned, EDC, right?
Yeah, right now I'm working on getting the set together for EDC Mexico because
Mm-hmm.
we're playing that next weekend.
Nice. Yeah.
And I have a rehearsal with one of the vocalists who's here in New York, and she's coming down to Mexico to perform two singles that we're working on
Cool.
with her that are unreleased. So we have a rehearsal tomorrow. So today I actually have to get the set list more or less, finalized. So I
Mm-hmm.
know she's coming in for both songs because I don't want her to perform both songs back to back because they're
Mm-hmm.
different. First off, the tone is different for each one, and the tempo is different. So I hate when DJs just like they have a vocalist or anyone that comes out to perform, and then they just play all these songs that are not in the same tempo. It's just it throws the energy off.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so I need to figure out when she's coming in. Basically,
Okay.
that's what I'm doing. Aside from
Interesting.
all the production stuff, I'm constantly working on.
Cool. So EDC, I want to wish you a great gig next week, right? Or when was it?
Next weekend. Yeah.
Next weekend. I want to wish you a great gig there. I want to thank you for your time taking to do this and to well, give a little bit of more insights into your life and where you come from and what you're doing right now. And yeah, thanks, man. Good luck with the gig.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun. It was cool. Woke me up. You know.
Well, goal achieved. Nice. Good luck, man. I'll see you next time.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Appreciate it. Bye.